For political watchers, the U.S. presidential election is all about the economy. The third presidential debate was focused on foreign policy and America's place in the world, but both Mitt Romney and Barack Obama took as many opportunities as possible to turn the talk back to domestic issues. A weaker U.S., both at home and on the world stage, have become major themes for Romney. So he has been listening closely to what Mitt Romney has to say and then been with us on the mornings after the first two debates. He's back again this morning, Republican strategist Ford O'Connell. Great to see you.
Good to see you too, Heather.
So the bar for many with Mitt Romney last night, Ford, was he had to pass the commander-in-chief test. Did he?
He absolutely did, and the way he did it was President Obama really wanted to paint Mitt Romney as a warmonger and an international cowboy. He set many traps during the debate, and Romney just frankly would not take the bait. And even though I think President Obama won on sort of foreign policy specifics, the real takeaway here is that Mitt Romney passed the commander-in-chief test.
He didn't look to be maybe reckless or scary, but when you say he didn't take the bait, I'm not sure that he took the bait because he really didn't leave much light between, there's not much space between their positions. I mean, he seemed to agree with Barack Obama on about 90% of the foreign policy issues.
Well, here's the key. Basically, American voters, according to Gallup, the polling survey company, basically say that Americans are just not that focused on foreign policy, particularly female voters. They are much more focused on domestic policy. So when Romney sits there and he stresses the need for a strong domestic economy, a robust military, and global stability, he is playing to their interest radar in terms of the voter. And frankly, I think it was very successful. Only time's going to tell whether it's going to propel Romney to the White House. You know, you can call me in 2 weeks and we'll know. But really, at the end of the day, I think that we're really talking about a handful of battleground states, you know, most highlighted by Ohio.
Yes, and that's going to be our focus, and we'll talk about the future in a second, but just on this point, in that, he really kept saying, I agree with Barack Obama. I mean, he kind of opened himself up to being attacked by Obama for, you know, moderating his positions. That Etch-a-Sketch on foreign policy, you know, they've been ever since the primaries attacking Obama on these foreign policy issues, and now saying that he agrees with him largely on these points, makes it look like he doesn't have a backbone or a set of policies of his own.
I don't think that's the case. I think this was much more about a debate strategy, and really what Mitt Romney looked like if you knew nothing about American politics. He essentially, if you didn't know anything, you would have thought he was the incumbent trying to protect a lead in the polls. And really what he wanted to say is, hey, I'm not, you know, an international cowboy. I'm not a warmonger. President Obama, you keep saying that I'm reckless, but I'm not.
He did not, as people had expected, raise the attack on the consulate in Benghazi, Libya, to any, you know, material point. A lot of people have thought that after the gaffe last week, that he'd clarify his position, that he'd come back with stronger questions, because there are questions to ask about that issue, and he didn't. And some of your fellow Republican commentators are seeing that as a missed opportunity for Romney. What do you think?
I think it was a missed opportunity, but it was a very high-risk opportunity, because if he tried to lay a punch on that situation he'd missed, it would have hurt him badly with a lot of folks. So I think what he really did is he was playing his cards safe, and he really just did not want to go for the big home run. I think as more comes out in the press, particularly with independents who are following it, you find out that they're very unhappy with President Obama's handling of the situation, and really that just plays to Mitt Romney's favor.
What he did certainly do was keep coming back to his theme of the economy's in rough shape, and he turned foreign policy issues back into domestic issues, chiefly on the economy. A little bit of tape to play forward, and then we'll be back to talk about this further, but take a look at this from last night.
For us to be able to promote those principles of peace requires us to be strong. And that begins with a strong economy here at home, and unfortunately, the economy is not stronger.
So how successful do you think he was last night in coming back to that key message of the economy, but through the filter or the spectrum of foreign policy?
I think he was very successful because really his strongest line was that America's influence around the globe is no greater today than it was 4 years ago, and that's primarily due to a weak domestic economy and an astronomical, out-of-control debt. And that is really what voters are most concerned about. And by touting that point over and over, he's driving home the point that we really have to work on the domestic nation building if we want to have a strong foreign policy.
Debates matter, and they certainly proved that out over the course of these three in terms of Mitt Romney being in a stronger position than many people expected with 2 weeks to go. You mentioned Ohio. Point the way to the future now for the next 14 days. If you were advising Romney, what would you be telling him?
Ohio, Florida, and Virginia. And if you can win those three, you will be the next president of the United States. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's a razor-thin margin. And what really, Mitt Romney has to do to become the next president of the United States is make sure that he gets independents and those who soured on President Obama to the polls. And if he does, I'm telling you, we're going to have a real nail-biter here. So
get them to the polls. You're saying the ground war? You're saying, door knock? You're talking about organization? That's what's going to make the difference now?
I really do. I think that that's really where we are right now. And if you really want to know what states are important between now and Election Day in 2 weeks, is really look at the travel schedules of each candidate. Right after this debate, President Obama flew to Ohio because he really believes that if he can win Ohio, he can make his last stand and hold on to the presidency. Mitt Romney is obviously looking at Florida, and he's looking at Virginia. And one of the comments out there on the Twitter sphere that sort of got a little laughter was the sort of bayonet comment and horses. And essentially what Mitt Romney was saying is we need more naval ships. What he was really talking about was the swing state of Virginia and the largest naval port in the world, Norfolk. And really that may wind up being the joke on Obama if Mitt Romney wins Virginia.
We'll talk those next 14 days, but enjoyed this morning as always. Thank you, Ford.
Thank you, Heather.